What's up, everybody? Welcome to On Your Guard, episode 14, The Unlikely Art of Real Estate, with our guest and my friend, Jordan Powers. Jordan's a architectural and real estate photographer based in the Minnesota area. Welcome, Jordan. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome to do this.
Yeah, we're glad to have you because you have a ton of insight, and we're excited to extract that from you today.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. I've known Jordan for a little while now. He actually had his own show that I was a guest on, so it's kind of weird, the role reversal going on right now.
Several times.
Yes. Jordan has a far more epic voice than I do, so hopefully he doesn't steal my job. And let's jump right into it. So tell me a little bit about your background as a photographer, like how you got started, and then maybe jump from there into what got you started in real estate photography.
Yeah, I graduated high school in 1998. And I was really into music at the time. I went to school for audio engineering to start recording music. And then from there, I got a job in a commercial studio doing music. But I also learned Photoshop and video at that time. So this is like 98, 99. And, after there, it was like Photoshop 3 at the time too. Like I think layers were maybe just introduced or weren't introduced yet. So that was quite a while ago, and then over the years since then, I dabbled in graphic design and video, and then it was in 2005 I stumbled across my first camera. Long story behind that, but it was a Canon Rebel, like digital Rebel, and
was it the original Rebel, because that's the one that I started with. Nice.
Yeah, the digital Rebel, yeah, and maybe 12 megapixels, maybe 10. I don't remember, but. I honestly have posted photos from it, like on Instagram, from that camera. It was, the camera worked. So, but anyway, and then that turned into, I took the traditional route of wedding and portrait photographer for several years, and this is all happening in Toledo, Ohio, where I'm from, just south of where you guys are.
Right.
And 2009, I moved. My wife and I relocated to Minnesota, southern Minnesota. To a small town called Mankato of about 60,000 people in the greater Mankato area, whereas Toledo is like 300,000. So a little bit of a, not culture shock, but a little bit of a, much different atmosphere, environment.
Yeah, for sure.
And then in 2011, when we were looking for houses, I noticed that all the photos were, below average, and it was really hard to get an idea as to what a house actually looked like. So we're having a really hard time finding houses, because we couldn't really tell what the photos looked like. So
right.
The realtor we were working with at the time, it was July of 2011. We were driving around looking for houses. Said, "Have you ever considered doing professional photography?" And he's like, "No, I hadn't." And we talked about it. I didn't even know real estate photography was a thing. I knew architectural photography was a thing, but real estate photography, I didn't really know it was its own niche.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't. It was just kind of on a whim. I asked him. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So we did a couple of his houses, and then he's hired me for every single listing since that was 2011.
Wow.
To date, him alone today has shot over 130 houses with me. And then probably 2 years into it, he started doing video. So I started offering video as part of what I do.
Right. And
then shortly after he started doing it, others started kind of following suit. And to date, I work with. I've photographed over 700 homes in the area.
Wow.
In my city, and then I work with maybe 10 or 12 different realtors at any given time. So yeah, that's kind of the history in a nutshell.
Cool.
Shortly, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm going to interrupt you. I do have a question, but I want to let everyone know, like you saw on the flyer, we are giving away an Ultirize 38 messenger bag. This bag's really cool. It's a top access messenger for all your stuff. Has a removable padded insert, so you could use it as just a normal messenger as well. We're going to roll a little clip to show you more about the messenger. Check it out.
Bags can fit a DSLR, multiple lenses, a flash, accessories, and provide storage for either a laptop or tablet. The messenger bags are perfect for the photographer who wants quick top access to their gear without having to set their bag down in the process. The backpacks and sling provide quick action, side and top access to your gear, and allow you to comfortably carry a tripod. Expand the possibilities with Ultirize by Vanguard. Introducing the Ultirize family of camera day packs by Vanguard.
A little bit of his backstory.
Featuring Vanguard's +6 expansion system.
Let's talk, how did you when you first started, so when you decided, did you just do like a ton of research? Like, how did you know what to do?
Well, no, I didn't do any research. I didn't know it existed. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe what I did was I shot the first couple of houses. Now, I had experience, in weddings, you shoot a lot of churches and locations. Yep. So I had that experience. I knew what a good structural photo looked like. And I actually did a few commercial architecture shoots when I was back in Toledo for some local businesses. And then there was at one point some company hired me to photograph some apartment buildings. So I had like that experience that I pulled from. Mm-hmm. There's some very specific things to real estate and architecture photography that like make it what it is that I didn't know at the time.
Sure.
That I think I went and photographed them not really having any knowledge on the actual niche itself. And then as I was editing, I think I looked up a few things to make sure that I was doing, I don't know. And then that's when I discovered there's a whole it's a whole massive niche. Like people are doing it all over the world. So.
Right. Well, one of the things that has always struck me, and I remember like the first time I ever talked to you on your podcast, and you kind of talking about how you were an architectural photographer and did that kind of stuff. And then I started looking into it because you didn't share on Instagram. You didn't share a whole lot of that stuff at that time.
Right.
So when I started looking into your work, like the biggest thing that I noticed is even like you have kind of a style for your work. It's all very clean, like the lines are always straight, and you just have this look to your work. And as a person who has house hunted, has looked at houses, producer of the show, Jared, he's house hunting right now. And when he saw your stuff, mainly the video, but when he saw your photos and stuff, he was like, wow, this is like night and day compared to the listings that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And so I guess how did you kind of develop that? How did you do you when you go into a house, because I know there's a lot of staging involved, do you rely on the agent to do all of the staging of the house? Do you kind of play a part in that at all?
I mean, over time it's kind of developed. I think when I first started, I was kind of catering to every possible need. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would help with some staging. I would help with moving furniture. For the most part, the agents are pretty good at making sure that their sellers or their clients know to have the house clean.
Right.
Obviously, clean is relative. I mean, everybody has their own interpretations of what clean is. So, but for the most part, houses are typically ready when I come. There's very little staging I actually need to do when it comes to real estate photography. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing interiors photography, which is, I can talk about that later, that's a little bit different because that's more involved because you're photographing for an interior designer, an architect, or a builder.
Right.
So that work's going to be more used for advertising, website, and that we can talk more about that later. But in terms of the way the photos look, there's some general fundamentals when it comes to real estate photography that anybody who is a real estate photographer knows, and that's the first thing is that all of your lines, all of your vertical lines need to be completely vertical, like straight up and down. Mm-hmm. So one common mistake that you'll see homeowners or actual realtors or homeowners make when they're photographing their houses, or even amateur photographers, is you go and look at the house and all of the lines are pointing upward or downward. That's the very first rule. Now, you can correct that. You can do that in camera with special lenses like tilt shifts and whatnot. But a lot of that you can correct in post-production. But a lot of people, I'm actually surprised at how many people don't know about lens corrections.
Yeah, it's
so that's the first. That's the most important thing. I'd say after that comes composition. Mm-hmm. Composition can be taught, but I mean, most people who are watching this are photographers. You know that composition is incredibly important, and then lights obviously super important as well.
Right. Do you do any artificial lighting, or do you try to do everything naturally? How does that work?
90% of the time I shoot on a Sony Alpha camera, so I know. I shoot on Sony, so the dynamic range on those is really good. I mean, I can usually pull any of the exposures I have off out of just one image. Mm-hmm. I always shoot bracketed. There's times when blending is appropriate. I try to avoid that because that HDR look gets, now when I first started, I did HDR because I just didn't know any better.
Sure.
But you don't typically see me doing HDR all that much anymore. If anything, I'll do masking in Photoshop. So I'll take, the darker exposure and mask the windows back in so that you can see outside as well.
Yep.
And then I try to get a nice even lighting so that you can see, the details and the shadows and the highlights. It's pretty much like any other type of photography. You have to be a little bit more particular because when you're dealing with real estate, you're also, the outside is important as well. So if you've got a house right next door, obviously you don't want to show that. So you have to be selective with what you're showing out the windows and whatnot. So
right. Is there a particular time of day that you like to shoot, or do you just kind of, I don't know, what do you do when it comes to that?
Times of day, it really all matters what the sun is doing. If the sun is super bright, it could be in the morning, it could be in any time of day. If the sun's super bright, it's going to be really hard to get photos that don't have flare because you're dealing with all different angles of the house. You're not dealing with just one direction. So sun is always a problem. My favorite days to shoot are overcast days because obviously you're not dealing with harsh shadows or blown out windows. So if I could have every day be overcast just for the sake of photography, that'd be excellent. But now obviously you can control lighting. So I do have flashes that I'll use from time to time, and I'll maybe do some blending with an ambient exposure with a flash exposure.
Right. Okay.
But it's rare where I use flash for real estate photography. Now, architecture and interior photography, it's a little different. You're going to use flash the majority of the time.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's great information. I think we have a question.
Yeah, Mike Sargent wants to know, how long does it take for you to cover a house, to film a house?
How long does it take for you to cover a listing?
I can photograph a house. When it comes to real estate, I can photograph a house probably in 15 to 20 minutes now.
Okay.
That's probably up to probably 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
Now,
you have it down to a science, like what you need to get.
Exactly. That's the thing. When I first started, it would take me 45 minutes to an hour, and I would use a tripod. I don't even use a tripod anymore, to tell you the truth. And I think a lot of real estate photographers might frown on that, but I want to get in and out as fast as possible.
Right.
So I shoot handheld as steady as I possibly can. I doing as many houses as I've done, I kind of have it to a science. I know what angles work and what doesn't. I know what things to pay attention for, like mirrors and reflections, and
sure.
You pick things up over time. But yeah, when I first started out, it was about 45 minutes to shoot a house, but I can do one in 15 minutes or less usually.
That's awesome. We have another question.
Just one more question from Stephen Gwynn. What is your favorite focal length for interiors?
What's your favorite focal length for interiors?
Usually 24 millimeters. I have a 16 to 35 that I shoot with just for flexibility.
Yep.
And I also have a 24 millimeter tilt shift, Canon tilt shift that I don't use that as much for real estate, but 24 millimeters is kind of a sweet spot because it's not too wide and it's not too shallow.
Yep.
Or narrow. So you can still get a wide enough room. The thing is, I think there's what realtors usually think is they want to make the rooms look really big.
Yep.
Well, you don't want to necessarily make the rooms look big. You don't want to be deceptive, but you do want to show what's all in the room.
Yeah.
So I think having the versatility of a 16 to 35 is comfortable, but 24 millimeters is pretty much the range I usually stay in.
Yeah, that's good information. I like that. I know like you do a lot of stuff kind of locally. Most everything you do is in your area. So I'm sure if you come across like you need to get the exterior of this house, but then like a storm rolls in or something happens, like in a nightmare scenario, say you're like out of town and you have one night to shoot something, what do you do in a situation like that?
Sky replacement, typically. I mean, usually you can change the weather pretty dramatically if you do a proper sky replacement. When I say proper sky replacement, I mean we've all seen horrible sky replacements, especially on Instagram. But,
yes, especially on Instagram.
Yeah, I have a sky library. Like when I'm out and about, I photograph the sky, the most boring sky you can possibly find.
Right.
From 4 different directions, because I just want to have that flexibility to where when I need to do a sky replacement, I have something for every scenario. And then you got to match the light up, obviously. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my photos have sky replacements. Even on nice days, sometimes the sky just doesn't look
right,
appealing. So you got to kind of mess with that a little bit. But yeah, usually sky replacements are the best, the safest bet.
Right. That's something that I got used to doing that for portraits. So kind of the same thing. Yeah. Like when you're out shooting somebody's portraits and the light or the sky just isn't working for you, you drop something in. So I got into that sky library for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's great information. So let's transition a little bit into video, because you have been lately, at least, doing a ton of video work for your listings. Which, I mean, I'm not in the industry, so I don't. It seems like you're on the cutting edge of that, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it more seems like I'm on the cutting edge. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself on the cutting edge. I think there's things I'm doing in my business that are a little different than what others are doing in the industry, and we can talk about that later. But in terms of video, I pretty much I started doing that about 1.5 years, 2 years into my business, and I really just picked up a slider. I just got a cheap slider off of Amazon for like $150 maybe, and then eventually upgraded some equipment. I got a pan and tilt head and a fluid head rather, and then I've got eventually I got a glide cam. To where now my primary equipment that I use is a Ronin M for video work, because I can pretty much get all my camera moves that I need through that. But pretty much it was just something I already knew how to do video because I had experience in it, but I thought maybe I'd start incorporating that into real estate. It was just a nice way to upgrade my packages, but also it adds a lot of value. I mean, if somebody can walk through a house virtually versus just looking at photos, it puts them in there. It helps sell the houses faster, in my opinion. And based on all the data, the data shows that that's the case as well. So
right, yeah, no, that's what was interesting to me. I mean, we looked for houses for a while and never saw any kind of video walkthrough or anything. And it was mostly, it's funny that you touched on like not wanting to be deceptive, because most of the houses that we looked at were totally deceptive. Like the photos weren't great, but like it was not a representation of the house. So it seems like you're trying to balance that. Like you want to make it obviously look as good as you possibly can, but it's a realistic representation of what somebody's going to be walking into.
That, and to be honest with you, like when in the real estate, and this is my personal take on it, like there's different ways real estate photographers charge for their services. Like for me, I don't charge for the photography, I charge for the service.
Yep.
So I 100% believe that like my job is to represent the agents that I work with as best as I possibly can. Like I can care less about the house. I want to make it look good, but honestly, my main goal is to make them look good, because if I make them look good, they're going to come back and hire me more, and other people are going to follow. And that's what's served me best. I haven't paid any money for advertising. Well, like a couple bucks on Facebook, but it's been pretty much word of mouth. And I think that if you're, like I said, you want to take good photos, but you want to be mindful. You don't want the agent looking bad by creating these just wide, distorted photos that aren't realistic, because then that agent's going to be somebody who uses misleading photos in their listings.
Sure. So that's awesome. Again, I'm going to cut you off. We are giving away this Ultra 38 messenger bag. Just drop us a comment if you have a question for Jordan or for me. Drop a comment. We're going to pick someone at random and give one away.
Bag covers all, offering you the possibility to expand your storage with one easy zipper motion, all the while keeping your gear protected. Ultra bags can fit a DSLR, multiple lenses, a flash, accessories, and provide storage for either a laptop or tablet. The messenger bags are perfect for the photographer who wants quick top access to their gear without having to set their bag down in the process. The backpacks and sling provide quick action, side and top access to your gear, and allow you to comfortably carry a tripod. Expand the possibilities with Ultra by Vanguard.
All right, well, we're back with Jordan. So you touched on a little bit. I know you shoot with Sony. You were talking about some tilt shift lenses, your 16-35. What gear do you typically take with you on here's another question. Do you do, say the package that you're shooting for is a photo and a video package, do you bang all of that out in one trip, or do you focus on one thing at a time? How does that work?
I mean, 90% of the time it's all done. When my primary tool was a slider, I would literally do a sliding video shot and then snap a photo right then and there.
Right.
So I would do them both at the same time. Now, since I'm using a Ronin, I can't do that. I have to do the photo shoot and then I do the video shoot. So I actually have since split my video packages up into two offerings. One is a standard video at 1080p, and one's the cinematic video 4K. And the cinematic is the Ronin M.
Right.
And I add some more bells and whistles on there just to make it worth the value. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
They're all pretty much done at the same time. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. And I know because we have talked about this, because I fly a drone, but I don't have my commercial drone license. I know in a lot of your work, or a lot of the videos that I've seen, you are showing like some drone footage and stuff. How do you deal with that? Yeah,
I was one of the first in my area to have a drone. I had the Phantom 1, and I still have it in my garage collecting dust if anybody wants it. But honestly, I crashed that thing so many times because it just didn't have any of the safety features that it does now.
Right.
And so I started using it early on, and then there was this period of time when, obviously all the FAA stuff was going on, and people were freaking out about that. It was especially people were especially freaking out about that in the real estate industry. So emails were going around between agencies, like literally threatening to, sue them or whatever if they use drones.
Yep.
And, so right now I just outsource it. I've got somebody in town who's a licensed to do it commercially. He knows all of the rules and things, and he does we've been working together for years, so he kind of knows what I like. So I pay him to come out and do it, and I don't really charge much extra on top of that because I think what he does is valuable, and it adds a whole level of value to my production. So
that's cool. I like that, and I like that you have everything kind of above board. I know so many people, like I've turned down jobs recently because I don't have my license, and that's just because I haven't had time to study and then go to take the test. I'm definitely planning on doing that, but I know so many people that just don't even educate themselves and know the rules, so they just go do it, and that's not really the right way to do it. So I can appreciate everything that you do with that. So
and actually one thing I didn't talk about either is my editing now as well. I've edited my own photos this whole time, but my photo I got a buddy who does photo editing, and he does it for me now, and I'm able to pay him as well. So that frees up a lot of time for me. And the only reason I bring that up is because we're talking about outsourcing the drone footage. I think outsourcing is another really smart business idea. And there's people who are much better at editing than I am. So, and he's one of them. So,
no, I think it's good. It's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but it's like if you want to make it as a business, you can't do everything yourself, and you can't expect to do everything yourself because you're going to burn out so quick. So I think the fact that you're kind of filling these gaps in where you could focus your time in a different area, I think that's a good thing to do. One question that I was just wondering, do you I know you do obviously your own personal work and stuff. How do you balance a full-time job, which you have, with this side job, with having time to take photos for personal, and then also just as a second add-on question to that, is this when you're doing interiors or architecture, do you kind of find joy in that? Is it still work, or how does that feel?
So let's talk about balance first. I think work-life balance is different for everybody. For me, I have a really solid understanding set up with my wife, and we have a 2-year-old, so she gets to stay at home and raise our daughter. And I get to, whenever I'm home, and I'm focused on that.
Right.
It isn't a lot of time throughout the week, but my main focus is them as much as I possibly can, and that's not a lot of time throughout the week. And then I set one day aside every week where it's just family. I don't touch anything, any kind of work. It's just family time. So that's how I manage the work-life balance. So that leaves me, I have a full-time job that I keep for the benefits, and you and I have talked about that offline. But so I keep a full-time job. So I'm basically shooting houses on my lunch break and before and after I go to work.
Okay.
And I usually shoot between 5 and 10 a week, during the busy season. And then, outsourcing has been a big help. So being able to send my edits to my buddy, that gives me a lot of free time. And then from there, I can do my other things that I need to get done. So, I think time and experience has allowed me to do this. If I was just starting out, it'd be really difficult to juggle all this. But the fact that I do have it down to a science now has kind of helped out with that, obviously. And,
right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that answered the question you were.
No, it did.
asking.
The only thing you didn't answer is, do you find is
yeah.
Is it still kind of art for you, or?
I mean, I think any photographer knows there's just something about doing photography in general that's rewarding, and I think that everybody has the dream of being the landscape photographer and the travel photographer. Like I still want to be the travel photographer and landscape photographer. I'd love that. Like that'd be what I would do and get paid for, like in a heartbeat. But there's a truth here that that's just not realistic nowadays for most people. And for me, I just really enjoy doing photography, and real estate just happens to be what I make money doing. And I thoroughly enjoy it, and I don't know, I still enjoy it. Yeah,
that's
I mean,
that's
kind
awesome.
of headaches like anything else, but yeah.
No, that's great. That's the answer that I was hoping to get. So awesome.
Cool, good.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up. Again, comments to win this messenger. Check Jordan out on Instagram, Facebook. On Instagram, he's Jordan Powers, JRDNPWRS, and your
Jordan Powers
Instagram,
without the vowels.
Yes, Jordan Powers without the vowels is his personal account, and then Jordan Powers Photography with the vowels is your business account, right?
Right. Yeah.
Got it right. Awesome. So drop us a comment for a chance to win the bag, and we'll announce a winner at the end of the weekend. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, Jordan, for the insight. Feel free to ask any questions. We'll come in on the comments and try to answer anything we didn't get to during the show. Yeah, thanks, everybody.